If that doesn't happen and the Bears decide they're going to look to trade out of the number one spot, I'm sure many people want to know, well, what is that going to cost? This was Adam Schefter. He was a guest on ESPN 1000 a couple days ago talking about the price of the first pick for the Bears.
That was a gift from the football gods on the final Sunday of the season. I cannot believe how the Houston Texans botched that. And it played right into the Bears' favor. And I have not spoken to anybody specifically about that because we've been kind of in head coaching world and we're starting to get into quarterback carousel and there'll be enough time to heat up. But I can just tell you right now that the Bears are going to have the opportunity to listen to some unbelievable offers for the number one pick, and they're going to have a chance to parlay that one pick that came as a benefit of the Houston Texans winning a game that they never should have won into a bevy of future picks that can set up that franchise for years to come.
Yeah.
So that was an incredible gift. Incredible.
So a bevy. So us dreaming big is not a fantasy.
No, you should be dreaming big. That pick is gonna be worth a small fortune, and the Bears are holding a lottery ticket if they want to cash it in.
Gentlemen, we have ourselves another example of a national reporter not watching the Houston Texans. It's unbelievable that they botched this. The most believable thing ever. We're talking about the Houston Texans. Of course they screwed this up. We talked about it all week leading up to that Week 18 game, that they were going to find a way to win and ruin their shot at the number one pick. It's the most believable thing ever from this organization. It'd be unbelievable if any of the other 31 teams screwed this up, but for the Texans to mess this up, very believable.
See, here I was thinking you were going to say, gentlemen, we have another example of a Chicago version of John and Lance with all the noise going on in the background while Schefter was talking.
There was a lot going on back there.
Schefter's over there like, yeah, it's a lottery pick, and these guys are going to be able to trade $1 million for it. It's like all this noise going on in the background.
Shout out to former ESPN 97.5 employee Brendan Riley for sending me that audio.
There you go.
Who?
You doing that bit with him too?
Yeah, I am.
All right.
I am. Look, I think he's right. I think Adam Schefter is absolutely right. And I said it in the first segment. I think the Bears would be crazy to trade Justin Fields. I think the Bears would be even more insane to not trade the number one pick if they end up sticking with Justin Fields at quarterback, because we've already heard of a number of teams that are interested in that pick. You talk about the Colts. Of course, they're the most talked about right now. There's thoughts that the Texans could trade up from 2 to 1 to get that pick. There's talks about Tennessee and Vegas and Carolina and Atlanta. I mean, that's 6 teams that have already been linked to trading for the number one pick. All right? And look, some of that could be smoke screens being sent out by the Bears trying to drive up the price, but come on. I mean, Schefter's not lying here. We know there are at least a few teams that are interested in moving all the way up to number one to jump the Texans to get their pick of the litter at quarterback in this draft class. There's a lot of demand right now. We're 70 days away, and we already know of all of those teams being interested in that number one pick. The Bears are going to get a ludicrous offer, Cody, and I think they'd be ludicrous to not take it.
I don't believe that offer is going to be out there.
Really?
I don't, unless there is a legitimate bidding war between two teams. But ultimately, I believe the price is going to initially scare off a few teams. You're going to have some teams drop out because they're able to do something else with the quarterback spot, perhaps. Like I believe Tennessee, as much as they would like to have a franchise quarterback, it probably is in their best interest to go out there and get one of these veteran quarterbacks and try to win right away and try to build some things on what is a positive that the Titans have right now. I'm not sure that the Raiders are in a situation where they want to make that move, but I don't foresee that incredible, blow you away, knock you over level of an offer. I believe they're going to get some selections, but I believe the bonus to what the Bears are doing, if they take, say, the Texans or the Colts offer, is they're still going to be able to draft a incredible player. Like, you drop off significantly talking to the Falcons, talking to the Titans, you have no idea how the draft looks when you jump that far back. You jump 3 spots back and the Colts have that conversation with you, or you jump 1 spot back and the Texans are having that conversation with you. You've got a very good understanding of how everything goes. And I do believe it's important for one of these top 2 defenders to end up on the Bears. So unless there's just one of these teams that loses their mind and you get into that Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson territory from a trade standpoint for a draft pick, I don't know that like Schefter made it seem like they were getting Deshaun Watson level compensation, like they were getting Russell Wilson level compensation. I believe they'll get an additional first-round pick. Like, I don't believe there's going to be a multitude of future first-round picks in this trade unless it's one of these teams, 8, 9, 10, 11, jumping up from that spot.
Well,
at that point, it's a bunch of first-round picks, but I think the favorite, if they're moving it, is the Colts. The second favorite, if they're moving it, is the Texans.
Well, Carolina at 9 is a team to watch. Tennessee at 11 is a team to watch, potentially moving all the way up. We mentioned what Matt Miller put together last segment, so he's a draft analyst with ESPN. He spoke with scouts, coaches, and executives throughout the NFL to come up with what he deems are 3 sensible offers for the top pick. So I'll read you each one. We'll start with the Colts. He's got 3 trades here. Colts are the first team. The 4th overall pick, a 2nd rounder, a 4th rounder, and a 2024 3rd rounder. That's the Colts offer. The Texans offer the 2nd overall pick, so a swap from 1 to 2, a 3rd rounder, a 4th rounder, and a 2024 3rd rounder. And then the final offer that's in the story here is an offer from the Panthers. Number 9 overall pick, a 3rd rounder, a 4th rounder, a 2024 1st rounder, and a 2024 3rd rounder. So obviously Carolina coming from 9 all the way up to 1 would have to trade a future first-round pick next year. I got to be honest, though, looking at each of these scenarios, it's not nearly as much as I thought it could potentially be.
No. And I really think the Colts are going to have to give up a future first-round pick if they want to move up from number 4 to number 1. Matt Miller disagrees. He only has 1 first-round pick going, and that's the number 4 pick, so that's where they would be swapping. But, Cody, I guess you and I have different definitions of king's ransom, because I think if the Colts threw in a future first-round pick, that would be considered a king's ransom.
That's a lot for 3 spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that to me counts as a lot. That to me is a huge offer to move up 3 spots. And I will say this, there's been one time in the history of the NFL draft where a team has traded up from number 4 to number 1. All right, there have been a number of teams who have obviously traded up to acquire the first overall pick, but one time where somebody moved up from number 4 to number 1 happened in 2004, where the Giants traded up with the Chargers to take Eli Manning. They gave up number 4 overall, a 3rd-round pick in 2004, a 1st-round pick in 2005, and a 5th-round pick in 2005. I think the asking price, and I think what the Colts are ultimately going to end up getting if they do trade with Indy, would be something similar. Like, I think they're going to end up with 2 first-round picks. Of course, 1 this year and 1 next year as well, and some additional picks. To me, that's a lot. I don't know if that's considered a lot to you, Cody. I don't think it's going to be 2 or 3 like the Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson trades, respectively, that you talked about. But to me, to move up 3 spots, that's a lot, and I think the Bears are going to get what I think is a lot.
The deal breaker may just simply be who's offering the most future compensation, because the Colts have the 2nd best pick to offer this year. The Texans have the best pick to offer this year, which is just 1 spot behind the Bears. But who's willing to offer the most future compensation? Because if you're not going to stick and pick at 1, you want to spread out how much you're getting from that compensation. Like you wouldn't want it all to be in this one draft. You'd want it to kind of be able to be spread out over the course of, at the very least, 2 drafts. I don't know that you could get into a 3-draft scenario, maybe with some mid-round picks and some mid-round additions. But I was really surprised going through Matt Miller's conversation to hear him have talked to people in the NFL and the severe lack of future compensation beyond what's in this draft. Like, I didn't feel like any of these were just like amazing deals, but at the same time, all of them benefit the Bears to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Colts one benefits the Bears. The Texans one greatly benefits the Bears. They did pretty well with mid and late round picks this past year, and if they feel like, hey, we can make some hay with these 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round picks, and oh, by the way, we moved down 1 spot, we still get our choice of the defender that we want. Our defensive coach still gets his defender. We can use some of those mid-round picks to improve our offense like we did a year ago with some of our offensive linemen. Like, all of these benefit the Bears. It may simply be who's willing to step up to the plate. Again, we're 70 days out. Nobody has to make a decision right now. And if it gets to draft day, I believe that the conversations become a lot more difficult. If you're the Bears, you would like to get this done ahead of time, know what the compensation is. And my goodness, if you were able to get the Texans involved and get them to move up for whatever it is, then you start taking calls on number 2. You do a little double move back like
Yeah.
an NBA team, and then you start taking calls on number 2 and you really load up for the next few years.
Thank you for watching a video on my YouTube channel. If you're a Houston sports fan, stop what you're doing, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you listen to me, Cody Stoots, and Brad Kellner on the Wheelhouse every weekday from 3 to 7 if you are in Houston. That's on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 FM.